You need a trick to writing about Christmas Carol because there is a massive problem with this novel. The problem is the book is just too easy. It's too simple. It's almost like a children's book. So how on earth do you introduce complicated ideas which will dazzle the examiner and get you those top grades? The trick is to write about Dickens' purposes. He didn't just have one purpose. He didn't just have two. He had many. Let's dive into the purposes, get those top grades. Scrooge isn't just obsessed by money because it's funny. He isn't just obsessed by money because he is a supervillain. No, he actually represents Victorian society. The Victorian attitude to the poor was to virtually criminalize it. The poor were seen as the idle poor. They deserved not to have any money because they were lazy and feckless. And consequently, the social solution was to create workhouses, prisons, treadmills, the poor law. So now we know the novel is a protest. It's campaigning to try to change the effects of the poor law and to transform the readers from miserly people like Scrooge into benevolent people, as Scrooge becomes when he's redeemed at the end. So Dickens had to overcome this rather large obstacle. How does he persuade the readers of this novel that Scrooge isn't just some sort of caricature to be laughed at, but actually represents them? How on earth are his readers going to see Scrooge and see themselves in this horrible human being? Well, he does that by taking Scrooge into the ruins of his past. The point of taking him backwards in time is to show the psychological reasons, the psychological damage that led to his cruelty. This will give Scrooge a psychological reason for becoming a miser that the reader can believe in, but also allow the reader to say, hey, my childhood was way better than that. I've got no excuse to treat the poor like society does, because that is the way that only a cruel miser like Scrooge would treat them. See what he's doing? His next trick is to introduce the two figures of ignorance and want. Ignorance and want are not real people. They are apparitions who appear in order to prove Dickens' ideas. So what are they? He isn't just telling his readers that we must help the poor. That is boring and simple. No, he is warning them of the consequences. Remember that ignorance has doom written on his forehead. Spooky. What does the word doom mean? It means that there will be riots, crime, and, another visual metaphor for you, revolution. Because that's what's coming in Europe. In only 3 years' time, revolution spreads like wildfire. But Dickens has anticipated that and saying, no, if you educate the poor, then a revolution will not happen, because the poor will be able to get better jobs because they are more educated. And so it's not just about charity and giving money, ching, 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 ching. It is about setting up a social system that educates the poor. Dickens was obsessed with setting up such schools. They were called ragged schools. That's all you need to know to prove that that was his intention, his purpose. Give me those top grades, examiner. And now we come to the Christian message of the novel. It's surprising, isn't it, that God doesn't really appear, that Scrooge goes to church but we don't really hear about it. Why is Dickens writing a novel about charity but not including the Christian message more overtly, more clearly. And here is the reason. He's actually writing about parenthood. In Scrooge's case, fatherhood, but I couldn't find a father with kids. Do me a favour here. Scrooge becomes a second father at the end of the novel. He has to become a parent to the poor, symbolised by Tiny Tim. And that is what he's saying society needs to do. The poor are like our suffering children, and we must help them, just like Scrooge helps Tiny Tim. That is what Tiny Tim represents. So now you have a full understanding of all of Dickens' purposes, and you can write about the whole of the novel. If you would like to see how to apply all this in the exam, I'm offering a masterclass on A Christmas Carol. The link is in the description. Or you might just want to know the top quotes to use, whatever the question. That is the video coming up now.